Welcome to Schneider Electric's The Good, The Bad, and The Beautiful podcast. Every month, you will be joined by
me, Carmel,
me, Emma,
and me, Rob,
who will talk about real experiences from real people with some special guests along the way. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.
All right, everyone. Episode 5 is here, and I know how much you've missed us. Right, so it's a hell of an episode this month. And just as a pre-warning, there will be some hard-hitting topics covered, but all three of us do think they need to be talked about, and I think you'll all agree. As always, we will cover mental health. This time, we're going to be changing things up and talking more about habits. As it's October, we'll be covering Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and for this episode, we'll be interviewing our lovely Emma on her personal opinion about Black History Month and her reflections on her own experiences. And don't worry, there'll be a quiz as always. So, Emma and Rob, tell me, how are you?
Hey Carmel, I'm pretty good. We're actually heading into my favourite time of year now, getting autumnal vibes, getting ready for winter, thick clothes, lots of treats. So yeah, doing good.
You forgot the best day ever in October. It's Halloween.
It's not about a day, it's a season.
I agree.
Are you guys having any Halloween parties?
I'm not. I actually would love to have one, maybe next year, but I will be putting up a few minor decorations for trick-or-treaters out the front. I actually went and purchased a skull and some arms that are going to look like they're coming out of the ground and a little tombstone. So I'm going to have that outside.
God, I got that as well. That's so cool.
That's what I'm doing. And then I've got some, caution yellow tape and lots of treats. So I'm hoping to get some trick-or-treaters at my door.
So I've actually spent quite a few days in the office over the past few weeks, and honestly, I've absolutely loved it. Also wanted to tell you that I found myself a new work wife. She shall remain nameless. I got a coffee subscription. So every day I can have up to 5. Actually, I think I can have as many as I want, but they have to be like half an hour between them. It's brilliant. Honestly, it's not just coffees, it's smoothies. I'm not going to be able to tell you the name of the company, but I highly recommend that you Google this. Emma, how about you? How are you doing?
So I actually had an exciting week last week, got out and about with work. So I got to go to a lovely awards event. I got to glam up a little bit and travel up to London. So it was actually a good bit of fun. And in fact, the same week, I also got to drive up to Birmingham. So, we brought on a cohort of graduates last September. And actually, they did their entire program from home majority of the time, so never got to meet. So we all got together in Birmingham and played some crazy golf, and it was actually called Ghetto Golf, just to congratulate them on finishing the program and actually just have some fun together and see each other face to face. So it was really, really good fun and nice to let our hair down.
Oh my God, how good is that? I want to play Ghetto Golf. That sounds brilliant. Was that your idea?
Unfortunately not. And
I
wish it was. But it was really, really cool. So highly recommend if anyone, wants to go for some crazy golf.
So for the past few episodes, we've been sharing our journals from a mental health perspective. And I know personally, for one, it actually really helps me just to write things down at the end of the day, even if it's just like a sentence or so of how it's been or what I've been up to. A great app, by the way, what I found was Penzu. So have a look at that. But now from this month onwards, we decided to try something new out. And this was actually, I think it was Rob's idea, which is a brilliant idea. And it's something in regards to habits. So here's the deal. Not sure how many of you know this person, but he's called John Hargrave, and he's written the book called Mind Hacking, How to Change Your Mind in 21 Days. Now, he's created a formula through 3 steps that you need to do over 21 days. Now, over here at the GBB, we're going to take a shortcut and we're going to commit to one habit that we're going to do every day for 21 days. In the meantime, I do promise to read the book and I can give you all some feedback. Any spoiler alerts are welcome. So Rob's going to kick it off this month. Rob, what habit are you going to instill in your life?
So I feel like that was quite a well planned out segue into what I was going to say there, Carmel. So I'm going to be at the forefront of innovation and I'm going to commit to some bedtime reading. So there are actually a number of reasons for this. The first one being that my screen time is way too high. I'm on a laptop all day, I'm on my mobile phone a lot, and I average like 4 hours a day purely on my mobile phone. And I have a really bad habit of kind of scrolling news articles or social media when I give up trying to drift off at night time. So, every 5 minutes I kind of pick it back up, check the time, and I end up back on my phone. So John, the other month on our podcast, John Hetherington, he spoke about the importance of sleep, and I'm really not helping myself. So there's a few reasons there as well. So the light from screens, blue light, that has a powerful effect on your brain. In your dark, your brain produces melatonin, and this is a hormone that makes you sleepy, for those who don't know. So the blue light from screens signals the brain to wake up. So the recommendation is no screen time an hour before bed. So I'm finding myself in a vicious cycle of waiting 10 minutes, checking my phone, waking myself up, waiting 10 minutes. You get the idea, right? So I'm going to put my phone away early, and I'm going to use a low light and do some bedtime reading. Now, the second benefit here is an idea I was reading about called bibliotherapy, or reading for well-being. So this is apparently an ancient practice that I've only just heard of. And the notion is that reading can really help alleviate distress and anxiety. And there's some different ideas around this. So choosing the right book for the right person or situation, with the idea that you can release relevant emotions in response to the text, or even get insights into some personal or relevant issues as well. And there's also the idea that all texts offer different benefits. So, for example, I like sci-fi or fantasy, and it offers me escapism and humour. So there you go. Quite a long intro to that, but my wellbeing habit, and I'll commit to doing it for 21 days, is reading before bed. And I'll let you know how I get on.
Oh, yes, please. And also adding to that, I was actually told once, and I read into this because you mentioned the blue light, which actually red lights actually helps to promote you being calm. And if you look, I don't know how many of you have iPhones, but I think all phones do this. You can actually change the screen to turn it into a red light at a certain time. So if you look into your screen, you can Google how to do it for your specific phone. I think I do it from 8 o'clock onwards, and I found it quite useful. So have a look into red lights as well. Thanks, Rob. Super helpful for that. Super informative. So we're going to move on to the next topic for today's conversation, and that's about breast cancer. So every year, people all over the world show their support to everyone affected by cancer by raising awareness. Now, whether that's through talking about it, and specifically for breast cancer, or wearing a pink ribbon, or even sharing their own personal stories. Now, in 2020, there were actually 10 million deaths caused by cancer. But breast cancer is actually the most common cancer in women in the UK, with one woman diagnosed every 10 minutes. Now, in 2020, there were actually 2.3 women diagnosed with breast cancer and 685,000 deaths globally. Now, all of those stats actually really stuck out for me. And when I was reading up on these facts, I don't know, I just really got emotive. And I don't know whether that's because I'm a woman or because I know people that have gone through it. And the thing is that, I know it's awful for anyone that's been through it and anyone who's experiencing it now. But I always remember one of my really good friends and the way she looked after her sister. And so it's not just the person that's going through it. It's actually the people that care about you as well. There is a lot of support, and she had a lot of support, but it's just crazy, isn't it? And I just couldn't imagine watching someone that close to me go down that path. But, she was always there for her till she passed away. And I was just like, that journey that you go on is just absolutely insane for whoever is involved in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very scary, the dreaded C word for anyone. As you said, anyone going through it or anyone around you watching anyone go through it. It takes a huge toll on everybody. And I think majority of people are touched by it in some way, shape or form, whether it is them or whether it's someone they know or someone they know that they know, sort of thing. So it's everywhere, and it's something we all have to very much deal with the best we can. And even myself, I think the first time when I was a teenager, I had my first scare with a breast lump. Petrified I was, because obviously I was young, and then you send yourself into panic mode and go to the doctors, and then they immediately send you for extra testing. And at that time, like the first time, I didn't realize it was normal protocol, so I was like really in a panic. Oh my gosh, they're sending me somewhere else. It turns out everything was fine, but it is very, very scary. But it's also fantastic that they do have that protocol, and that is the immediate next step. And, I've actually been in that situation more than once, a good couple of times. It never gets easier, is just as scary. But, I think it's super, super important to get things checked out when you find things, because more often than not, it isn't anything untoward. But if it was, the more you check yourself regularly and, ensure that you just know what is the new normal for you. It's not just about, right, I'm feeling for lumps and bumps, but you just need to actually check so you know exactly what is your normal, and then you will pick up any changes really, really, really quickly that way. And then obviously, if it is worst case scenario, you've hopefully caught it quick enough for, there to be recovery and for it to be dealt with. So it's so important to do those checks. And I personally need to get better at that for sure. And I've had, people in my family suffer from this. So it is very, very important. And, it's something that we should all do every day, week, whatever's regular for you. But it's super important to make sure that you keep yourself checked and are aware of your own body.
No, I mean, I absolutely agree with that. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, I did find it difficult. I mean, I think they used to do checks, didn't they, previously, where you would go in and you would get checks. But now they're saying to do it yourself, because obviously it makes sense, right? And I'm going to be honest here. I didn't know what to look out for, but I have researched it, and I think exactly what you said, Emma, you need to think about what's normal for you. Only you know your body as well as you do. And if you don't know it, get to know it. And like Emma said, look at your breasts, feel them, there's nothing wrong with it. It's your body. And just, I guess, and report any changes, just go and speak to someone. If you see any changes, change in size, I've been reading on the NHS, website, outline or shape of your breast, or even if it's a change in the look or feel of your skin, just get it checked out. It's better to be safe than sorry, isn't it? So
yeah. And don't forget the armpits. People forget the armpits.
Emma, thank you.
And that's super, super important. And I think there can be regular changes each month in that area. And, also not to panic if you do find something, because sometimes it does go down and it depends on your hormones, but always check the armpit as well.
Yeah, I think everyone should just be checking their lumps and bumps. And I don't think you necessarily have to tell someone every time you do. But I think, the main takeaway from this is try and educate yourself to know what you're looking for, and then just keep checking. And something that I've learned, in preparation for this podcast as well, is I think with men, we talk a lot about testicular cancer and things like that. And obviously today we're talking about breast cancer. So obviously the female gender has the biggest risk of breast cancer, but also actually around 0.5% to 1% of breast cancer occurs in men too. I didn't actually even know men could get breast cancer until about a week ago when I was doing some research. So, I mean, we're talking 55,000 women to 370 men. So the scales are, very much leaned in one direction. But when we're talking about checking your lumps and bumps and all that kind of things, guys, check your pecs as well. Just do the research, find out what you're looking for. Don't rule it out. We're not invincible, and, just try and stay on top of it.
No, I definitely like that. Check your pecs. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move on to our final topic for this month, and that is Black History Month. So for those who already know, or who are not aware, but Black History Month originally started in the US, but now has been recognised in the UK and Ireland and Canada as well. Now, the whole purpose of this month is to really celebrate the achievements and rich history of the Black community. Now, this year, the theme is Proud to Be, and it's inspired by the Black Lives Matter events of 2020. And for this episode, we're actually going to interview our lovely Emma, who's going to share her own personal experiences on the topic. So Emma, would you like to kick us off and tell us why this topic is so important to you?
Thanks, Carmel. So for me, growing up, I literally didn't learn anything about Black history. And that was in school. It was never taught. And also at home, I didn't learn anything, right? So I was brought up in an area that was predominantly white. So there were literally few or no people that looked like me. And also there was no Black culture around me to learn from. But strangely, I actually don't remember noticing this. And in fact, I had no clue. Well, I don't remember feeling that I was different. So, I started noticing that more and more as I got older. I started noticing, oh, hey, people don't actually look like me. I am a minority here. So that sort of probed me to ask more questions and understand everything a little bit more. I wanted to learn. And, by not understanding my own history in that way, actually left me quite unprepared for when I was met with racism, and I have unfortunately experienced that. I've been treated differently in certain circumstances. I've had names shouted at me in the street randomly. I'm just happily going about my day and I've had things shouted at me, which took me very much by surprise and was extremely hurtful because I just didn't understand why, what on earth was going on. And I, have had other horrible incidences happen to me that I will never forget. And so have like family and friends that I know that are also people of colour. So it is out there and it is rife. So I feel it's super important to understand the history of our ancestors. Everyone needs to learn, the history that makes up our world. So, now I'm in my 30s, I'm very much more determined to grow my own knowledge around this because I just don't really have much. And, that's for me personally. It's for me to be able to speak to friends and family and colleagues about it as well. And also just for my future, hopefully I'll have future children and I want to be able to tell them about their history, and I want them to be super, super proud of who they are and where they come from. And I don't want them to be caught off guard, and I just want them to be proud of the skin they're in.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, and I really like the ending that, proud of the skin that you're in. I did have a question. So I think we are all aware of the Black Lives Matter events of 2020 around the world. And I guess the question here from me is, do you feel that what happened last year needed to happen in order to get the message heard?
Yes. Personally, I do. Unfortunately, sometimes you need to raise your voice to be heard. You need to shout to be heard. And if you feel so strongly about this and we're not getting our message across, sometimes this is the only way in these type of events, these type of protests. And if we look historically, there's so many things that have changed on the back of events like this. You've had protests for women's rights and gay rights, for example. So, it's not a new thing, and I'm sure it won't become an old thing. I'm sure it will continue in the future for other, important topics. But I do think it was necessary, and I do think it continues to be necessary to really make a change.
Great, thanks, Emma. And I guess something that maybe came out from the Black Lives Matter campaigns last year, and there were the other messages out there with people saying all lives matter. There were people I knew that kind of said that too, and I would sit down, have a conversation with them, and explain why it was important. It was Black Lives Matter, and actually in most of those conversations, there was just a misunderstanding and a lack of awareness of what the message was trying to get across. And after that conversation, they were more aware and changed how they thought or felt about it. And I guess one of the questions I have really is that I do actually think there's a lot of people who want to do or say the right thing, but they may not always know what that is. So they could be nervous about asking you a question, or maybe they shut off a little bit, or they seem uninterested, or maybe even ignorant at times. And I mean, this applies to more than just race too. But, what do you think, Emma? Surely we want people to ask questions, right?
Definitely we want people to ask questions because that's the only way you're going to learn, right? We've spoken about this before with the LGBT plus community. It's the same situation. People are nervous around these types of topics, and that's normal and that's absolutely fine. But we do need to have the conversations. And, I truly believe that it's better to ask for sure. And I know a lot of family and friends and whatnot would prefer that as well. I think, if you ask, you can learn and you can understand better. And, it's the same thing. If you say something wrong, you can just be corrected and then hopefully never do it again. It's better that way. And I think anyone would appreciate somebody trying. I definitely appreciate somebody trying to understand more about different cultures, trying to understand me, where I come from. I'm very much understanding of other people, and I love learning about different cultures and different history of where people come from. So I think it's all about trying, and I don't think people should be scared to ask questions because I think it can only be positive in the end.
Absolutely. Thank you, Emma. One of my questions was, if you have experienced these things, then it's totally different. But if someone, for example, just isn't around people from a specific community or race as much, or they are just inquisitive, how then can they better educate themselves?
So, there's lots of content out there, right? We've seen a lot of it pushed across this month, but it is out there all the time. There's books you can read, there's podcasts you can listen to, there's films and TV series or documentaries out there. There's a lot of content to learn from. So I think it's just important to build your understanding in your own time. Go out there, educate yourself, not in just this one dedicated month, by the way. Continually educate yourselves, because there is a lot of untold history out there. And I myself are learning that history. But, it's not just about the history, though. It's also around other things like microaggressions. So I don't know if you know what that is, but for our listeners, it's actually the indirect things we say or do that are unintentionally discriminative and offensive. So that can go for anyone. It's not just around the Black community. It can be around anybody. Okay. So for examples, just to make it clear, when someone says, I don't see your colour, actually, that is offensive, because it's like, actually, no, I want you to see my colour. I just want you to accept my colour. You have people ask to touch your hair because it's different. And I have that all the time, and it's bizarre. Your hair's nice and out and natural and curly, and someone wants to touch your hair, or in fact, they touch it without even asking.
No way.
Yeah, I've been there. I've had that situation, and it's awkward. I wouldn't just suddenly touch someone's hair, and it's just because it's different, but it's not acceptable. And things like being followed around a shop by security. I had that growing up all the time, and it's like, I'm with my friends, but I'm the only Black person, and I'm the one being followed around by security. Nothing's being said to me, but I'm just being followed around. It's that uncomfortableness. So, there's little things like that. That's just a few examples, but it's something that we don't do on purpose, but it's something for us to be aware of.
Wow, some shocking examples in there, really. Just, subtle differences in, like you say, these microaggressions that you don't always see every day, but I guess when you live in it, you can take notice of that. But so the people who are potentially nervous about asking some questions or wanting to say the right things, then what would be the big no-nos, like the things to make sure you avoid first and foremost, and then come and ask me some questions, other than using offensive terms, of course?
Well, yes, those terms are a 100% no-go, although people seem to think they can throw them around like it's nothing. That's something that very much frustrates me when they're used in music and things like that between friends. And then if somebody else says it, it's offensive. I'm very confused about that whole thing. But I'd say being dismissive, right, is a huge no. And I think it often happens. People have their feelings and opinions dismissed on this topic. I've had conversations myself with people, and they just say, oh, it's not that bad. It used to be worse. Racism doesn't exist from their perspective. Things like that is very dismissive of how I'm feeling or how other people are feeling. And I think that can have a massive negative effect, and it really does not help the situation. It can be extremely hurtful. When you are dismissed, you're made to feel like you're overreacting and being silly. And it's that whole, if it doesn't affect you, then it doesn't exist type mentality. And that's where we're going wrong. That's what needs to change.
Yeah. So I guess on that then, how can we be better advocates, or actually even just better friends and colleagues?
Well, obviously you two are absolutely fantastic, so it's not you two, but educate yourself. It's important for you as people to take it upon yourselves to educate, not expect the Black community to educate you. Lend an ear to people, be empathetic. You may not have experienced it yourself or may not understand, but just have some empathy for people that are going through things and feel this uncomfortableness and feel this certain way, and show support for sure, for those around you. And as we already said, ask questions, because that's the only way you're going to learn. And I think it's super important to not just educate and show your support and whatnot, but it's also important to actually be anti-racist. You may not be racist yourself, but you need to be against it. You need to be against any type of prejudice, and you need to be 100% pro equality. If you're just learning but staying silent, then, there's not going to be much change. So, it's that whole people that say, well, I'm not the racist one, I see everyone equal. That's fine. And that's great that you see everybody equal, but it isn't the case. And we need to, stand up and actually make changes to make things better. And, we will only create those changes if people speak out and truly support the cause. So, for me personally, I just want to know that my family, friends and colleagues stand behind me. I want them to truly see who I actually am for all of me. None of this, I don't see you any differently to anybody else. Like, I actually want you to, see the color of my skin and love that. That's who I am. I want you to champion it. There's nothing worse or more hurtful than someone close to you that actually keeps silent. I call them fence sitters around such an important topic. That silence speaks volumes. And actually, personally, I almost find it more hurtful than someone being racist to me.
Yeah, some really good points in there. I think sometimes it's hard, right, to reflect on yourself and be honest with yourself and maybe understand the reality and maybe say, okay, I don't do enough. You might think you're a good person. You might say, no, well, I'm not a racist. And okay, it might be true, but, do you do enough the other way as well? And I mean, I can probably sit here and say, no, actually, I don't do enough when I reflect on some of those points. I probably haven't educated myself as much as I can. I ask questions and things, but do I go and read up on things? Have I looked at history myself? And I think sometimes, just take a step back and go, okay, take that pressure off yourself. The first thing is acknowledge you can do more, be willing to do more, and go and do it. So I've got 21 days of reading coming up, right? So I'm gonna find a nice book and try and educate myself, and I'm gonna commit to that right now. And hopefully other people listening in will take similar inspiration and just, we'll all just try and educate ourselves.
I don't think I could have summarized it better than Rob. And Emma, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know it's a personal and it's an emotive topic, but I think it is something that we definitely needed to talk about. And I think exactly what Rob said, and what you mentioned of how we can be advocates and what we can do will allow everyone, and in this case, including the Black community, just to be comfortable and just be, comfortable to be in the skin that they're in. Right. So on that note, everyone, here's our final round of today's podcast, and it's going to be focused on a little quiz. So, Emma and Rob, are you ready?
Yes.
Of course.
Right, then here we go. Here's number one. How old is Halloween? And when I mean that, you know what I mean. It's basically, how long has good old Halloween been running for? A, more than 1,000 years. B, more than 4,000 years. Or C, more than 20,000 years.
That is a tough question.
Yeah, I'm completely thrown by that.
I'm going to say 1,000. That was A, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that
I'm going to go for B.
It's actually C.
What?
Yes, it's actually C.
Okay. Interesting.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Halloween's carved into a cave wall somewhere.
Okay, sorry. Can we do that one again? Because it's actually 2,000 years, not 20,000 years.
I was going to say.
Either way, you were wrong.
We now know. So how are we going to do?
We're not. We're going to carry on. Everyone who's listening will just say Karma was wrong. So thank you, everyone. I do apologise for that. Here's question number 2.
Can we both get a point for that then?
You both get 1 point for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Here's number 2. So this one I definitely know I've got right. Trick or treating has existed since medieval times. What was the original point of it? This is an open question. Take a guess.
These are good questions.
I feel like it was just for fun. Why does there have to be a major point to it?
Oh, yeah, that's your answer, Em. That's
I'm
great.
going for it's, just fun, bringing the community together and all that.
Okay. Rob, Googling. I can see what you're doing.
I'm not, no, hands up. I'm not Googling. I'm trying to think. I think it was a way of scaring children to behave so they would get treats.
Oh, very good. So actually, originally, young people dressed up in costumes and went door to door in Scotland, by the way, looking for food or money in exchange for songs, poems, or other tricks they performed.
Oh.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
So it was like a necessity to live.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like you go up and do your party trick and then get a reward.
That's it.
Can we go back to that? Sometimes I need some extra cash.
I'm taking my son on Sunday. I might get some cash. I remember when I went trick-or-treating, actually. Yes, that was years ago. I think when I was about 10. And we got a lot of cash. I'm not going to lie. We got a lot of pound coins that day.
Where were you trick-or-treating?
It was in Kent. I'm not even joking. No, it was Kent. No.
I remember getting an apple once and I was really disappointed about that. That is not a treat.
Okay, so for my third question, this is one, that's quite important to me. Emma and Rob went to an event this last week, actually, together. Who did they forget to invite? Was it A, Frankenstein? Was it B, Freddy Krueger? Or was it C, their best friend, Carmel?
Well,
any takers?
I believe that was
this got slightly awkward with my colleagues on the phone right now.
I'm less scared of Freddy Krueger at this point.
I feel like Carmel's going to turn up on my doorstep in some kind of Halloween scary outfit to get
Just
me.
give her £1, you'll be fine.
Perhaps. Absolutely. Perhaps. Yeah, that's actually true. Maybe £5 if that's okay. But not that anyone's begging, Come on, guys. You've got to answer the question.
Yeah, Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. Okay. Emma?
Well, personally, I just think the invite got lost, on its way to Carmel. I'm going with Carmel, but, the invite I think it was, some mysterious, miraculous thing that happened that.
No, it's a trick question. I didn't forget. I just consciously decided not to invite Carmel. So.
What? Okay. For my final question of the day, who was the first Black woman in space? Does anyone know?
Are we getting multiple choice?
No.
I did say I needed to learn more about Black history. So
I haven't read my book yet.
You don't know?
Okay.
The name is Mae Jemison. She was an American engineer, physician, and former NASA astronaut. And she was born in 1956, and she was the first Black woman in space.
Yeah. Cool. What an achievement. Can you imagine that?
Amazing.
Was that quite recent?
1987.
Okay.
Cool. Wonderful things happen in 1987.
Why, Emma? Go on, tell us.
A legend was born quite clearly by the name of Emma Gallagher.
Okay, this is where I tell you, Emma, she was actually selected to work for NASA in 1987, and she actually went into space in 1992. So Carmel,
you're in your fact checking.
I did correct myself, so I do apologise for that. So honestly, I do apologise for that. But yeah, someone to look into and stuff. So yeah.
So shall we call it a draw this week?
I think so. This episode, it's going to be a draw.
I'll take that.
Okay, you take that?
I don't mind that one.
Okay, so after that awkward quiz, don't worry, I've actually officially forgiven Emma and Rob because I do love them so much. And I'm just pulling their leg, I'm joking. Or am I? So we're now going to end this episode and we look forward to seeing you next month. So if you have any questions, feedback, or want to suggest some topics, please do email them at thegbb@se.com and myself, Emma, or Rob will get back to you.
You can find us on se.com, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Spotify.
And please, please, please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And we will catch you next month.
The content of this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The information, statements, views, and opinions belong to our hosts and should not be construed as advice by Schneider Electric.